Hey guys, welcome back. So this chapter we're just going to carry on doing our texturing work. We're going to move on to do the trousers and the apron next. So let's just go ahead and get started on that. First of all, we're just going to hide the apron, and I'm going to grab the trousers, just going to Alt and click on them, and then just going to turn on solo mode, and we're going to jump up the subdivision levels. So that's D on the keyboard. There we go, that's the highest one. Alrighty, so let's see, this is obviously going to be some sort of linen type material. So let's see what kind of base colour we can get down on this. First of all, we're going to select our skin shader 4. I'm going to go to MRGB, and I'm going to go ahead and close these menus here as I don't need them now, and dock my colour panel over to the left hand side so it's easy to get to. And I'm just going to select a just kind of off-white, sort of a creamy grey kind of colour, and I'm going to do fill object. I've got the Z intensity turned up to 100 on this one, as I'm not going to be building up many layers. Might just darken that a little bit more. There we go. Okay. Let's get a colour that we're quite happy with. That'll be fine. Right, so let's start by adding some general details to this. We were going to bring out sort of the threaded details. So let's head over to our right hand menu. We're going to go to masking. Going to go to mask by cavity, and just going to hit mask by cavity with the intensity set at 100. Might take some time, it's quite a heavy mesh, this one. There we go. And it's going to select all of the areas in between the threads. So I'd quite like it to look like there's some dirt ingrained in there. And we're going to invert the mask, and I'm going to turn off view mask. And I'm just going to sort of shift the hue a little bit, something down towards a bit more of a dirty kind of orangey colour, not massively over the top. And I'm going to change my standard brush to a colour spray, and I think I'll just add one of the dotted alphas, alpha 07, and I'm just going to bring the intensity down slightly and switch the brush mode over to RGB. And oops, let's just turn off Z add. And let's just start painting some grime in here. Could do a colour fill if I wanted to, but I want it to feel somewhat more random rather than a bit too uniform. Changing the the RGB intensity will allow me to just go over certain areas to make them even grimier. With our mask turned off in terms of visibility, we'll be able to start seeing the details a lot easier than if we had to unmask it, remask it, and do all that kind of thing. So it's really going to start bringing out the details around the seams as well. There we go. So just a little heads up as well, I do apologise if there's some sounds of power tools going on in the background at certain points of the video. My dad's refurbishing the kitchen at the moment, he's cutting up some tiles outside, so might be a little bit noisy at some points. Just hope the mic doesn't pick it up. Okay, so got a bit of an all over grimy kind of tone going on in the seams and in between the weaves. Just going to shrink the brush size a bit and just go over the seams individually, as that's going to be an area where a lot of grime does accumulate. Don't imagine he washes these too often. okay. So let's just, yeah, that'll do fine. Let's just clear the mask, hold down Control and swipe in the background, or you can press clear over on the mask and options. And from here, we're going to start doing some hand-painted grime using Zaplink. So I'm just going to position this over on the side so I can actually get a decent resolution inside Zaplink. Rather than doing it in parts, I'd rather just get as much done as I can. So let's go ahead and do that. Go to Documents and then Zaplink. I'm going to press Drop Now. Should have opened Photoshop first, but oh well, the glory of an SSD. There we are. So inside Photoshop, we're going to create a new layer. You can do that via the New Layer button, or go up to Layer, New Layer. I'm going to select one of my sort of grime brushes. Got a few different ones here. I will share them in the video description. So a few grimy bits and pieces here. I'm then going to set this layer to overlay, and I'm going to pick something which isn't quite black, but something maybe with a desaturated dark brownish. And I'm just going to start touching this brush over the place just to start putting some randomly distributed grunge in there. So if you've got brushes that you like, go ahead and use those, or you can download the ones which I'm using. I would give credits where credits are due, but to be honest I can't remember where I got half of these brushes from in the first place. So if you recognise them, please let me know and I'll credit you. So using overlay, the overlay layer, this will allow me to build up the detail, and it will also interact with the colours that we've got down there already. If we turn off the shading layer and the overlay layer, we'll see that all the details that we painted on inside ZBrush are still there. If we turn on the overlay layer, we can see that it now interacts with that with the detail we got painted in there already, without destroying it. So it adds a realistic sort of layering of grime and dirt. So let's see what else we've got here. I think I've got some splatters and things like that, so maybe not. Yeah, let's just grab, I know it's a bullet hole, but I can just darken the colour. Too obvious. Something like this might do fine. There we go. And it's just a case of just slapping down some detail and grime wherever you think it's necessary, if you think it fits. It's going to create a new layer and do overlay, and just drop this down on top. I'm then going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm going to turn the radius up just so I can blur this out so it's not quite so defined. Press OK. And then I'm going to merge this layer down and press Preserve. And I'm going to do the same with the other one. Turn the shading layer back on, go to File and Save. Drop back to ZBrush. I didn't mean to do that, I meant to press recheck. So let's just go back to Photoshop and just copy what I did. If you ever do that, all you need to do is just come back into Photoshop. We're going to apply the layer mask and create a new layer underneath. Just going to fill the background of that layer and then merge it down. Then we're going to go to Select All, Edit, Copy. I'm going to go back to ZBrush and go to Documents and then Zaplink. Going to press Drop Now. We'll update Photoshop and that'll give us back what we what we just took from ZBrush. Then go to edit and paste, and I'll overlay what we've already done straight back onto our model. If we press merge down and press preserve, then go to file and save, head back to ZBrush, press re-enter ZBrush and press pick up now. And that's just going to drop our colour work onto it. And then we're just going to do the same sort of thing from the rear. So I'm just going to get this enlarged so I can do it all in one go. Not bothered about this area down here as that goes into the boots, so we don't need to bother with that bit. There we go. Document and Zaplink. And update. Create a new layer, switch it to an overlay mode. And come in here and start doing the same sort of thing again. Just try and find some grind brushes. Something like that might do. Just remember to change up the colours a bit. There we go. Now if you just right click and press merge down, go to preserve, file, save, head back to Photoshop and re-enter, ZBrush and re-enter, and pick up now. Okay. So this is going to result in a very sort of flat texture. If we have a look at this with a flat material on here, if I just apply that flat material, you can see that there's actually not a whole lot going on. We don't have any sort of shading outside of our detail painting. We don't have to worry about that at this stage because we're going to be using some of the details that we get from one of the maps we bake out. We're going to bake out a what's called a bent normal map, and that's going to help enhance the shading with some pseudo shading. So we'll get onto that a little bit later. So I think we've got enough detail down the sides. Possibly this one needs a bit more work. I imagine he might have, you know, wiped his hands on his trousers at some point. So let's just go ahead and drop this back into Zaplink and update. And let's see if we can find some sort of smudge or something. I think what I'm actually going to do is just going to put down a new layer. Again in overlay mode. I'm going to pick maybe a dark brown, maybe even a dark red, and I'm just going to splatter that on some. And from here I'm going to grab the smudge brush, if I pick the right one, there we go, smudge tool, and I'm actually just going to smudge that out so it looks like maybe he's dragged his fingers across it. Can always enhance that with the eraser. Just come in and swipe on it. Oh, I hate those little ripples that's going on there. If anyone else has this problem, the little ripples caused by dropping your pen onto the surface, it's caused by a process called wisptis.exe. Down here, this little bugger. I've tried all I can to try and get rid of this damn thing, but it always keeps popping back up. Whenever you delete the process or the actual exe file from Windows, it'll automatically restore the next time you reboot. And yeah, it's just a massive pain in the ass. Another great decision by Microsoft. So there we go, got some wiped finger marks on there. So just going to merge down this layer and press preserve. Going to go to File and Save, and drop back into ZBrush. Pick up now. There we go. I think we need to do something on this side as well. It's a little bit bland. So let's just go ahead, drop back into ZapLink from this viewport. Update. And let's get a bit of grime on here as well. New layer, overlay. Let's drop a bit of grime on. Not going to be a huge amount of extra stuff on here, but just to stop it being so Spartan. Same process as before. Jump back in, pick up now. So we'll also be baking out an ambient occlusion pass as well, and that's going to help us get some extra little shading and things in. So we'll get onto that later on once we're done texturing this up and retopologizing. So let's move on. I think that's enough in terms of the trousers. It seemed grimy enough. Let's turn off sailor mode. And yeah, that kind of works in respect to his body. And maybe we need a bit more grime around the top of his trousers. So let's just turn off Z-Add, turn on RGB mode on our brush. Let's get a bit of grime. Just paint a bit on towards the top there. Not going to need a huge amount. Just to unify things a little bit more. There we go. Fantastic. So let's move on, and we'll go to the right. I think we'll go to the belt next, just to get this sort of area of the body out of the way. So just going to alt click on the belt and go onto solo mode. I'm going to turn the resolution up. And on this one, I'm actually going to use a texture to texture this. I've got a leather texture which I quite like to use in these areas. So I'm going to first of all change my standard brush to a drag rectangle and turn off the alpha. I'm going to go to texture, import, and I do believe if I head to my resources and head into textures, I've got a whole bunch of useful things in here. Brown leather, that should work. Yeah, there we go. So let's select our texture that we imported, though it doesn't look like it has appeared because I don't think it's, what kind of file is that? It's a JPEG, so shouldn't have any troubles importing it. There we go. There we are. So let's make sure we got RGB. That's great. So let's start dragging our texture on. We may need to overlay this several times to get the opacity right and turn the Z intensity up, which will make it a hell of a lot easier. So the belt itself isn't going to have a whole lot of texture resolution when we get the UV mapping and such done. So we're not going to notice too many problems with it, with tileable textures and seams and things. But it would be nice to get a few details from things like the stitching, things like that. So I'm just going to make sure I'm at the highest subdivision level. And then going to go to masking and go to mask by cavity. And then going to invert, and you can see we've got the seams appearing here. I'm just going to enhance these a bit. So I'm just going to switch my brush mode over to dots. I'm going to turn off the texture, and I'm going to pick a sort of off-white kind of colour. And I'm going to just sort of lightly kind of come over these seams here. We'll be enhancing this further with the bent normal maps we'll bake out. And thank you, ZBrush. At least I can never forget to save anymore. Just wish you'd give me some warning. There we go. Let's just turn the view mask off. And see, what we're doing isn't having a massive effect, so I'm not going to really labour that and push that any further. What I am going to do though is enhance the cracks that we have in there. It's by choosing colour spray and an alpha. Get a darker tone. Turn up the brush size and turn down the Z intensity. And from here I'm really going to enhance the the textures that we have, the surface detail. Just add a bit of sort of pseudo shadow in there. Of course, you could hand paint the belt if you wanted to. It's completely up to you guys. Painting a realistic leather texture is a little bit difficult, so I'm not going to be attempting to do that. Plus it gets the effect that we want anyway, so let's turn off solo mode, see how that looks. There we go, it looks pretty belt-like. Let's move on to the belt buckle now. So let's just Alt and click on the belt buckle and we'll turn on solo mode. Let's go ahead and turn the subdivision level up. I think that's at the top there. Alright, so now what we really want to do is sort of give this a very metallic kind of look. I'm going to have a look through my matte caps and see if I can find something to be interesting. So, I think that'll do quite nicely, a bronze kind of colour. That'll be too shiny, too bright, too bright, too antique. I think that works quite nicely. Let's just change the colour slightly so it's a little bit darker. Maybe a little bit more orangey. There we go. That'll work quite nicely, I think. Okay, so we're going to use the same trick that we used on his earring, just to kind of keep the metallic kind of feel on this. So we're going to go to Document and press Zap Link. Going to enable Polygon Colorize and press Drop Now. Going to update. And it hasn't gone quite right, so let's just return unchanged. And let's just fill this with a colour. So I'm going to click MRGB, go to Colour and Fill Object, and possibly again, because I don't think the intensity is all the way up. There we go. Going to go to Document, Zap Link, Drop Now. Going to click Update, and I say it's still showing our trousers, but if we just turn the layer on and off, it'll update. So let's duplicate the shading layer and drag that down underneath. Right click and press Merge Down. We'll preserve the mask on there. We'll then go to File, Save, drop back into ZBrush and re-enter. Going to pick up now. And that's going to have some nice details on it, I think. Let's switch over to our skin shade. Right click and choose M. Color, Fill Object. And not quite there, just because the Z intensity wasn't right. So I'm just going to undo to the point of before we sent it in. So let's go ahead and choose, I think it was light bronze, was it? Color, Fill Object. Nope, wasn't that one. Do you believe it might have been rich bronze? That one was too dark. Let's try it with a different colour on there. MRGB. Colour, Fill Object. Not quite. Must have been Ralph Stumpf's bronze antique. That's the one, but I think it wanted it slightly darker, didn't we? A little bit lighter. There we go. So RGB intensity is at 100, so we're just going to redo that process. Document, zap link, drop now. Update. Duplicate the shading layer, drag it down, right click and merge visible. Oops, not merge visible, just merge down. Press preserve, file and save, back to ZBrush, re-enter and drop now. So let's go ahead and do the same to the sides. So from the one side, document, zap link, drop now, update. Duplicate the shading, drag it down, merge down, preserve, file save, re-enter and pick up. It's getting a very rich colour now, so I quite like that. Colour, oops, didn't mean to do that. Document, zap link, drop now, update. Duplicate shade, drag that underneath the other one, right click, merge down and preserve, file save, back into ZBrush, pick up now, there we go. So let's switch this over to the skin shade. I'm going to choose M. I'm not going to fill it in with colour, just the material, and here we get something quite bronzy looking. It's got a bit of subsurface on there, mostly because we have the wax modifier on. If we just turn that down, let's get rid of that. That's going to do us absolutely fine. Anything else we can tweak inside of Photoshop when we bake out the textures. Let's turn off solo mode. Fits in quite nicely. Might just need to rough it up a tiny bit. So let's just turn on RGB, get a dark colour, turn off Z-Add, just put some splatters on there, possibly choose a different alpha. Of course you can do it with Zaplink if you wanted to, but that'll do us fine. It's just the hint that it's not clean, that's what we want. There we go. Alrighty, so let's see what we've got next. So that's the belt, the trousers, and the belt buckle. Let's go ahead and sort this apron out, I think. Let's go into subtools. I'm going to turn on the apron. I'm going to alt click and select it. And we're going to jump up the subdivision levels. Now, before I do this, I'm actually going to reduce the subdivision levels on everything else by going to Z plugin, Subtool Master, and Low Res Visible. Because as we go through, if we start increasing the resolution of every single thing that we have here, everything's going to start chugging. Not too badly, as let's say it's well within the range of acceptable limits in ZBrush. If we have a look at the model total, altogether we're dealing with 360,000 polys there. So that's the model at its current subdivision level, which is very manageable. If we, for example, went up to high res visible and put everything up to its full resolution, not only is it going to take ages, and I might regret it, but we'll be able to see how many polys we have in total in the entire model. So let's just see what we've got. Get in there. There we go. So what's the difference? Let's have a look, see what we've got. Let's just hover over there. So altogether we have 46,263,600 polys in this model at its highest subdivision level. So Moving around and painting isn't going to be too difficult because I've got a rig that can deal with it, but you can see it's not quite as responsive as it was when I'm navigating around. So I'd rather keep everything responsive and not push my system too hard. So just going to, once again, low res visible, and we'll just deal with the apron at this point. Dum-de-dum, there we go, getting there. Yeah, I probably should have paused the video at this point, sorry guys. There we go. Alrighty, so to just deal with the apron, it's gone to solo mode, and we'll pump the subdivision level up on this up to our maximum. There we go. So this I'm going to do slightly differently. I'm going to use a texture for this. However, it's going to be a texture that you wouldn't expect would work, but I've had good results doing it before. So I'm just going to turn off the alpha, and I'm going to switch over to a drag rectangle. I'm going to my texture palette, and I'm going to import. I'm actually going to take one of my paper textures, and I'm going to open that. I have my paper texture, and I'm going to make sure I've got RGB turned on, and also I'm going to apply the skin shade material. So I'm just going to click M and go to full white, color, fill object. There we go. A bit on the bright side, but it's okay for now. Let's just select our texture and make sure we got RGB enabled and drag this over. So this paper texture is pretty high resolution, so dragging it over is going to take a while for it to actually put things down. However, a good thing about it's got a lot of nice detail in it. So a quick way of doing this is going to be to use Zaplink. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to Documents, Zaplink, Drop Now. Going to Update. And then just going to go grab my texture from my file explorer. So it's my textures, and I'm just going to grab that and drag it into the document over on here. It's actually more of a wooden texture. I don't know why it's called paper, but let's just bring a paper texture in as well. That's definitely paper. And I'm also going to bring in that leather texture as well. So first of all, I'm going to take the leather texture. I'm going to select all, edit, copy, back to Zaplink document and press paste. Obviously the scale of that is ginormous, so I'm going to hit Control T, shrink it down. Going to stretch it over. We're not actually going to be using it at its full visual level. Just going to hit multiply on here. In fact, I might even do soft light. No, that's definitely not going to work. Unless, of course, we fill this layer underneath with slightly darker colour. So let's get a dark brown. Slightly desaturated, and I'm just going to fill that. Oops. Add a new layer, fill it, merge down and press preserve. It's going to give us a base. I'm going to turn on the layer over the top and try multiply, try overlay, a bit bright, so a bit too red. And what I'm actually going to do is go to Image, Adjustments, and Desaturate. So I'm left with Grayscale. I'll then go to Multiply, go to Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast. Turn the brightness up. And create a new layer. Going to take over this this paper texture. Select all, edit copy, edit paste. And then going to reduce the size of this as well because it's humongous. And pop this over the top. So this will make a bit more sense once we see the results. Actually, I quite like that with the sort of dirt and wear at the bottom. So on here, so that we can kind of see things a bit more clearly, I'm just going to select this multiply layer we have. I'm going to go to Layer, Create Clipping Mask, and I'm going to do the same thing for this one we just put in here, Create Clipping Mask, and that's going to make sure it doesn't go outside of the bounds of the mask beneath it. So in this one, I'm just going to take the opacity down, and quite likely turn on overlay. I think I'm just going to take the opacity down of the leather as well, so it's not quite so obvious. Try soft light on there. There we go. Soft light gives a bit more of a worn effect. If we go into adjustments and go to our our levels, let's drag that onto correct screen, and we're just going to play with the level sliders until I find an option which gives us a bit of detail without too much of the thread work in there. So obviously we don't want it to look like linen, so I'm just kind of balancing out this to get rid of some of the shadows of the linen from the texture. So getting rid of some of the darker colours by bringing up the black levels, or the black output, that should help us a bit. Don't want to lose too much detail. There we go. And then just going to go over and grab, actually I think I'll leave that layer. I'm going to put a new layer over the top. Going to once again make this a clipping layer, clipping mask. Going to grab one of my brushes. I have a splodgy brush somewhere. My affectionate term for it, and I'm going to put this onto, I think we'll go with soft light, and just going to start bringing in a bit more of a leather kind of colour to it. Now obviously this is going to be hard boiled leather, so it's going to have a bit more of a yellowy tinge. Let's see if we get some cracks and things going on, some scratches and stuff. Brush is a little bit big. There we go, let's just drag that down. Again, too big. There we go. So we're going to further enhance this inside a ZBrush. So let's just go ahead and merge these layers down. I'm going to go File, Save. Let's minimize that and re-enter ZBrush. Pick up now. So we're going to get that sort of fade around the edge. That's fine, we'll be able to make that up as we go, just by sampling some colours. So just going to switch over to Colour Spray. Not going to bother with a texture. And I'm just going to press C to sample a colour. turn off Z add, turn on RGB. RGB intensity I'm going to turn down, and my brush size I'm going to turn up. I'm just going to paint over this. And the areas that we missed, I'll be filling that in a little bit later. So using the colour spray brush, you can see we get a different hues and things appearing as we do it. So it keeps sort of a discoloration. Not too fussed about the inside, we're not going to see it. Not really. But fill it out anyway. Doesn't have to be as detailed as the rest. Ah, damn it. Just going to undo that. Forgot to turn on backface masking. Turn on backface masking. That's under brush, auto masking. And then you got backface masking there. That'll make sure it only affects the one side. As that'll undo everything we just did in Photoshop. Just a bit on the annoying side. So again, we'll be further enhancing these textures inside of Photoshop anyway. It's good to have some groundwork. So now with the base colours sorted out, we can just enhance them a bit with a faint texture over the top. So I'm just going to drag rectangle, choose this one texture, take the RGB intensity down, and I'm just going to pop that over the top just to give the indication that there's some sort of surface detail on there. Doesn't have to be amazing, but it's something. Doesn't even actually have to be leather, but as long as we get the sort of look. The specular maps we'll be doing will be enhancing this as well, so we'll definitely get the kind of effect that we want. So let's just grab our leather texture as well. And you're going to put a soft alpha on this, so alpha 1. It's going to bring back a bit more of the chunky leather sort of look. Only very faintly, don't want to go overboard on it. Here's the point where we can enhance what we've got here. So I'm going to go to Tools, I'm going to go to Masking. I'm going to try Mask by Cavity, and this will allow us to get a bit of extra detail in here. So I'm just going to turn off the texture. I'm actually going to import a different one. I'm going to import this one here. And I'm going to drag that. Once I've actually got it selected. I'm going to drag that around the crevices. Come on, ZBrush. You can do it. There we go. I'm going to turn off View Mask so I can kind of get an idea of what we're actually doing. It's not doing a massive amount, but it's building on what we've got. So that'll do nicely. We're then going to turn View Mask on and invert it. So this will give us our crevices. And I'm just once again going to get the colour spray brush with a dotted alpha. Turn off the texture. And I'm going to get a dark colour. And just paint within this mask. going to give us back the sort of leather-like wrinkles that we'd put in before. It's also going to enhance the areas around the seams. I don't think we've got much texture up here on around the neck, but we'll just invert the mask and just put a little bit of grime and such around the edge anyway. That'll do nicely. Let's just turn the mask off and press clear. There we go, it's starting to look more leather-like there. And let's see what we can do about these threads. I'd quite like them to show up, so I'm going to try mask by cavity, see what kind of thing we get. See, it's going to be a little bit difficult to go over them with colour. So I'm going to see if we can do by peaks and valleys. So if we select peaks and valleys from the mask menu and just tap mask by peaks and valleys, not quite. It does give us a very interesting mask. Quite like it actually around those areas. So I'm going to invert the mask and turn the mask off, and then going to select a very dark colour and just paint in using the alpha and the brush, just to kind of, this will add a lot of age by the looks of things. So it's a happy accident there. To see where the mask is. This is very cool, I like this. So it's actually got quite some soft edges to the mask as well, which is really helping fade it off and sort of make it look like it's more worn. So it's always good to have a play around with some of the masking, see what kind of options you get. Just going to turn the alpha off so I can just affect a larger area a bit more uniformly. And don't forget to the inside, because we will see the inside through his legs, so still have that face masking on, so just remember that. It's starting to look a whole lot more sort of beaten and used. Then I'm going to invert the mask, and then I'm going to select a lighter colour. So probably not like that, but something a bit like this, maybe a bit more saturated, and just tap in, not doing a lot, just kind of adding in a few patches of sort of worn areas and discoloration. Clear the mask, I'm going to hold down, I'm going to right click and hold down shift. I'm going to turn the RGB intensity down and turn off Z add, and this will allow me to blur the paint with this smooth brush. So hold down shift, smooth it down. That's actually brought out the seams quite nicely for us, though I would like to get a few different colorations in there. So we'll go back to using peaks and valleys just to kind of enhance things a bit. So let's see what kind of masking options we can get with this. So let's see what we've got here. So the PV range will control the fall off distance of the mask. So let's try increasing it, seeing what kind of look we get from the mask. Obviously that's a little bit too much. Let's reduce it down, and not quite. So peaks and valleys coverage, so that will control the mask amount. That will be applied to all peaks and valleys of the selected subtool. Don't think we're going to find what we need here, so I think we're going to go back to cavity, turn the intensity down, and mask by cavity. So we can kind of see that we've got a little bit what we want. We're just going to have to be a little bit more careful than we would have been. Just going to turn off any of the alphas that I have on and select my brush as dots. And I'm going to choose a very desaturated sort of yellow colour for the thread. I'm just going to paint that in. I might even completely give this a miss and just do it in Photoshop afterwards. I don't think we're going to get what we want. Nah, it's going to be a whole lot of work for not a lot of payback. So quite happy with that as it is. Let's turn off solo mode, and let's go back to a higher subdivision level on our guy's body. Not all the way up, because I'll only have to shrink it again. That looks very much like a blacksmith apron. A couple of things we need to do now is we need to do this pouch and the little clasp on the back. For the clasp on the back, this is going to be really easy. Just going to alt click on it to select it and turn on solo mode. Turn the resolution up, and then just going to grab, I think we'll do antique bronze again. Let's have a look. Shiny metal? No. Let's just select white. Pewter will do, I think. No, it's a bit too stylized. Materials. Let's try. Let's just go with. The bronze that we did before, rich bronze. Then I'm just going to go to Document and Zap Link, enable Polygon Colorize, drop now, update. It's going to duplicate the shading, drop that down, merge it down and preserve, file save, back into ZBrush and pick up now. And then I'm going to select skin shade, if you'll let me. There we go. Looks like we had the RGB opacity all the way down again, so let's just drop that back up. Once again, go into rich bronze. That'll do. Document, Zap Link, drop now, update. Duplicate the shading layer, drag it down, right click, merge down and preserve. File save, re-enter ZBrush, pick up now. Switch over to skin shade. See, we still need to do it on the sides, so let's just project that. So let's select rich bronze. Document, Zap Link, drop now, update, drag down, There we go. Same as before. The back really doesn't matter, as we're not going to be seeing the back, it's just going to be part of the geometry. Oops, not a new document. Zaplink. Drop now. Update. Copy. Or duplicate rather. Merge and preserve. File. And save. Back to ZBrush. Re-enter. Pick up now. I think that's all we'll need to do. It's just go to skin shade. Yeah, not perfect all over, but it'll do fine. Fill object. Such a small detail, I'm not all that bothered. I'm just going to sample the colour and turn off Z-Add, turn on RGB, just paint over that section and around the back. There we go. So it's actually baked in sort of the reflections and the light information. So it looks pretty decent. And we haven't had to really bother with it too much. There we go. Alrighty. So let's get this pouch done. Just going to alt click on the pouch. Rather unsurprisingly, we're going to go to solo mode and just do the subdivision levels all the way up to maximum. There we go. So let's see what we can get done on here. Just going to follow the same sort of process I did with the trousers really. It's nice to have a bit of a difference in the surface. So I'm going to turn off solo mode now, just so I can sort of blend it in with the rest of the apron. And from here we're just going to once again do the same process of masking by cavity, inverting the mask and turn off view mask. In fact, I just want to change the entire base colour of this. I want it to sort of look like old linen, so a brown colour is pretty good, though I'd like it a little bit darker and a little bit more desaturated. Something a bit sort of grey will work. So I'm going to go to MRGB. I'm going to bring up my colour palette so I don't have to keep on clicking on it. Fill object with the RGB intensity up to full. I'm going to switch the RGB intensity down. And just to get a little bit more responsiveness, I'm going to alt click on my guy's body. And I'm going to take the subdivision levels down. And I think, yeah, that'll do fine. I'm going to do the same with the trousers, how they already are. Okay, so it's a little bit more responsive, so that's good. So let's go ahead and do that mask again. So we'll mask by cavity. Oh, got the body selected, don't want to do that. Let's clear the mask. Alt click on our apron front and mask by cavity again. Invert the mask, turn off view mask. I'm going to get a dirtier colour. So I'm going to switch it down to more of a brown and get a darker, more saturated colour. I'm going to switch over to my colour spray and actually grab an alpha for it as well, just a blurred one. Make sure I've got RGB selected, the RGB intensity is down, and I'm just going to build up a bit of grime around the sides, just like last time. Now we're not going to see the interior of this, so it's really not important to do the inside. This is actually going to be, I think I'm just going to, when I retopologize it, sorry, I'm going to sort of fill this in, so I'm going to have a bit of an indent, but inside this will be black, so we don't have to worry about the inside. So let's just drop some grunge in there. It's going to clear the mask, shrink this down, zoom in a bit more, get a bit more resolution, and yeah, we're going into Zaplink. Drop in now, update, create a new layer, switch it to overlay, and once again we're going to just get some grunge brushes and just dirty it up a bit more. A bit of a brown. Let's paint that over. Don't worry if it goes off the sides onto the apron, it won't save that. Let's just vary it up a bit, just get a few different types of texture in there. Brush size a bit too big there. Switch in a few different colours. Merge that down, preserve, file save, or Control S on the keyboard if you like. Re-enter ZBrush, pick up now. There we go. So I quite liked a bit of the bleed over actually. So I'm going to alt click on the apron and I'm going to do Zap Link on here and drop now. I'm going to update and add an overlay layer to this. And I'm just going to sort of bleed over a bit of that colour, a bit of that dark reddish kind of colour. Just kind of helps seat things in a little bit more. Merge down, preserve, file and save. Back into ZBrush. Pick up now. There we go. So now it looks a whole lot more integrated. And that's all we need to do on that, so that's nice and simple. So let's get these rivets done, the pouch rivets. Let's just Alt and click on them. Let's get the subdivision levels up. And I want these to sort of be almost like a steel kind of colour. So I'm going to select one of my sort of steel materials, or metal dust perhaps. Let's just put the colour up to white. That's a little bit too bright, so let's just try the sky metal. I'm going to say these are available from Gnomon Workshop. They're Ralph Stumpf's materials. I would distribute them if I could, but that would be very naughty, so I'm not going to do that and get in trouble. Just going to take the brightness of it down a little bit so it's not quite so specular. I'm going to make sure the RGB intensity is turned up to full. Not making that mistake again. Go into Documents and go to Zap Link, enable Polygon Colorize and drop now. Update. And let's just get these updated so we can see them. Now if we turn off the shading layer, I'm actually just going to get the paint bucket, get a slightly darker grey, fill these in, turn on the shading so you can see we've got that sort of a darker effect going on. And multiply that, and I'll duplicate it, merge it down, file and save, back to ZBrush and re-enter, pick up now. Do that from the opposite side. And Zap Link again, drop now, update. Let's turn off shading and once again just fill in the dots here. Just duplicate the shading layer, drag that one down, right click and merge down, preserve, file save. Into ZBrush again, pick up now. And really we only have this sort of angle left to cover. So again, Document, Zap Link, update, turn off the shading, sort of fill in the white as much as we can. not going to matter too much at this angle, to be honest. And pick up now. One more attempt at this angle. Okay, so let's just grab our skin shade, press M and fill object. Yeah, that's fine. Probably just do with painting a little bit more over there. So I'm just going to turn on RGB, turn off Z add. Just wish ZBrush would stop turning that on every time I go back into it from Zaplink. Just paint over that. Just sample the colour by moving the mouse over it and pressing C. And we can just fill in that little gap which we've missed. There we go. Alrighty, so pretty much there, guys. Think I'll leave the accessories for the next chapter, and from there we'll go on to do, well, the remaining objects. So we're getting there. Let's just take a look with everything at high res. Probably should have paused the video again. Really gotta stop doing that. Looks like we weren't quite at the full resolution for the pouch. That's okay. So there we go. Let's have a look. Oh no, we were. That's fine. It's just a little bit of a glitch in the viewport. Okay, so looks like we're doing pretty well. I will be adding a tattoo to the guy as well, so we'll cover that in sort of the final sort of detailing stage of the poly paint. And for this, I'm quite happy to leave it there for now. So come join me in the next chapter, guys. Hope you've got something useful out of that one. So in the meantime, take care and happy sculpting.